Eddie, this is the Global Digest think tank group. Why don't you introduce briefly to our audience? Eddie, please.
My name's Eddie Flanagan. I have a community interest company called Edmund Flanagan and Co. And it's about digital creatives. So I teach people to be creatively, to use their existing IT skills to explore the creative aspect of digital art, whether that be podcasts. I'm also a podcast producer. So whether it be podcasts or I'm a digital artist, I have a YouTube channel. And that's what I do, is basically help people to be creative using digital technology.
So usually, who are your students? Who are your, listener?
Prisoners. What it is, about 17 years ago, between the ages of 15 and 50, I served 20 years in prisons. I'm now 66. So 17 years ago, I changed my life to the point where I now work in prisons. So my students are prisoners. I go in, they relate to me because of my experience in life. And I try to encourage them to change their lives around and, like myself, find employment and be successful in life and in business.
So usually, what topic, what title, issue you used to teach them, or you give a counseling? Please, can you briefly detail?
Right. My pathway out of criminality and crime was art. I'm an artist. I've always been an artist. And about 10 years ago, my hands became crippled and I could no longer use them to draw or to paint. So I started using digital art. That means I create content for social media, for my own YouTube channel. And I try to help people in prisons to find a pathway out using digital art. So as I said, I made a series of podcasts last year. I'm making a new series this year. And I try to teach the people whilst they're in prison to learn to become a podcaster or a digital artist. When they leave prison, I then try to help them gain employment.
Usually, prisoner, they can use internet or YouTube or social media inside prison in UK.
No, they can't access the internet. But what we do is we teach them the skills they require for release. So we teach them the skills when they're in prison to make podcasts or be a digital artist. And then when they're released from prison, they can then put those skills to use. So it's teaching people in readiness for when they are released into society, because our aim is to change people who have criminality in their background to be useful and honest citizens. And as you say, a lot of it is mentorship and guidance. So I guide the people based on my experience of my rehabilitation, of my recovery. I was an addict. I was an alcoholic. I got sober and I stayed sober 14 years ago. So I try to teach them that up to the point that I meet them, they may have addictions in their life. And their addiction is the driving force for their criminality and their offending. So I encourage them to look at their addiction, find recovery,
right,
and on release, them to use their skills to gain employment.
Right. So you were just alcoholic, or you also used other drugs?
Yes, I used drugs as well. My primary drug was alcohol, but when I drank, I would take other drugs. But I believe that was learnt behavior, because where I grew up, criminality was not uncommon, and addiction was my way of dealing with childhood trauma. When I was a child, I suffered childhood trauma, and my way of dealing with that trauma was addiction, alcohol and drugs. And that continued up to the age of 50. As I said, I'm 66 now. So right. I think a lot of our behavior is set up in childhood.
So, Eddie, you were just alcoholic in UK, just having alcohol or too much alcohol is crime, or how's related to crime?
No, it's not a crime to drink, but when I drank and took drugs, I used to steal to fund my addiction. Because I drank every day and I took drugs every day, I had to turn to crime to feed my addiction. So the criminality was to keep my addiction in place. So I had to relearn. I had to relearn that society is. I am responsible now. I feel responsible for my own actions and for others, and so I try to teach them a new way of life, really.
Right. So you alcohol addiction, and then for funding for your alcohol, you did crime, stealing and robbery. Also, you kill somebody else?
Oh, no. I never physically hurt anybody.
I see.
I never caused harm to other people. But by committing crime, I was affecting society.
Right.
So the people that were affected by my crime was society.
Right. So then finally you was in prison, and then you was long time inside prison, and you realize your crime, and you no more committed any crime today.
Yeah.
And you still maybe drink alcohol?
No. I haven't drunk for 14 years, nearly 14 years now.
So how did you stop drinking?
No drugs, no alcohol for 14 years.
How did you stop drinking alcohol? What technique made you stop drinking?
My daughter. I looked at my daughter and I realized that if I didn't change my life, then it would affect her. And so my love for my daughter. And I didn't want her to have a life like I had. And yeah, so my love for my daughter. Right.
So maybe also it may not available alcohol in the prison.
No, but in Britain, England, unfortunately, there's lots of drugs in prison.
Oh.
Yeah. I didn't drink when I was in prison, but I did take drugs. Yeah.
I see. Which means medicine from the clinic or hospital?
No, illegal drugs.
Really?
Britain's criminal justice system and prisons are, there's lots of drugs, illegal drugs in our prisons.
Why? It's law enforcement very strictly control the prison, why it's available.
Corruption of staff who work in there, the availability in society of drugs is an issue. Unfortunately,
you said there is corruption in law enforcement in the prison. It's interesting because it's supposed to be very tight and it should not be any kind of drug or alcohol. I mean, some kind of illegal stuff in prison. Do you think the officer from prison are involved in dealing drugs in prison?
a very small amount, yes. A small percentage of prison officers or people who work in prisons are corrupt.
So
but I think prison is just a reflection of society.
Right, I see. So it's still some problem in prison, right? So a lot of drugs are still available and a lot of illegal things are happening in the prison. Eddie, you are now working in the prison, right?
Yes.
They pay you or they did not pay you? For you are teaching or mental counseling.
Yeah.
So you get a salary or it's no salary?
No, I have to fund my work in prison. So I get funding. So for instance, for me to work in the prisons don't have money to spend on teachers. So I have to find my own funding so I can go into prisons and talk to the prisoners.
I see. So a kind of like a private institute or private NGO, you are working like that.
I'm my own. I run my own company, so it's my responsibility to find the funding to go into prisons. And I try to find that funding through other people who believe in what I do, and then hopefully that they will sponsor me to go into the prisons to be able to provide counselling.
I see. So you are not government funding, right? You don't receive government funding.
No, I'm not government funded. Unfortunately, the prison system is not well funded, and I have a passion to want to change other people's lives, and it's like now. I mean, my podcasts. I can't make them unless I get funding. So I'm looking for funding now, so I can make my podcast. And I'm looking for funding so I can go into prisons and tell them about my story and hopefully help them change their lives.
Right. I mean, it's a great job. I wish a lot of funder your program. You can able to survive. And a lot of
it's very. I'm finding it very difficult, but I believe in what I'm doing, and I will keep on trying to do the best I can.
Right. So a lot of prisoners are from what crime background?
A lot of the prisoners come from broken homes, or one or both parents are missing from the home. So poverty, broken families,
I see.
and have been through the care system. So it's normally people who got into trouble when they were kids, and it's continued into adulthood. A lot of the people are in prisons because of addiction problems as well. So they steal to fund their addiction.
I see. So similar your experience, you can share easily to those drug addict people, right?
Yeah, because they can see that I have overcome those issues,
Right.
and I'm now a responsible member of society, and hopefully that will encourage the others to find a pathway out of crime.
What else? Other crime from drug addiction?
I think how can I explain this?
Maybe most are
A
drug
lot of
prisoners.
yeah, because they've suffered emotional trauma in childhood.
Right.
And in order to deal with the trauma in their childhood, they've turned to alcohol or drugs. And because of that, they end up in prison. And it's a circle that you have to break. Society demands that if people break the law, they should be put in prisons, and rightly so. But we have to offer the people in prison an alternative to the lifestyle they're living.
So in UK, most drug, it is opium or what kind of drug come on?
Right. In prison, the most common drugs are spice,
I see.
heroin, and cannabis.
I see. So those drugs usually came to UK from where it came from?
All the world. It's within a society now with the internet that you can order drugs online and have them delivered to your home from another country.
I see.
If you want to, you can. Drugs are not hard to find if you want to find them.
I see. Drugs.
Especially in prison, because there's a lot of money involved.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of our prison system is radicalization of young men.
Right. So
a lot of men are being radicalized within the prison system for political reasons or for religious reasons.
right. So you mean all drug dealer has a network and they can have a connection from different country, from different sources. So people from UK, they just request drug dealer to provide and they just receive it. So probably there are main resource like heroin from Afghanistan and Burma, you know, those authoritarian country, the regime and local militia has producing drug that can spread across the world, including UK, right?
And in British prisons, the Muslim Brotherhood is the most dominant gang within the prison system.
I see.
So a lot of prisoners, when they're in prison, have to be in a gang for safety. So belonging to a gang the biggest gangs in prisons are the Muslim Brotherhood.
I see. Usually they are from which country? Afghanistan or Iran or Syria?
Everywhere. Mostly from England, but their heritage or their parentage is from another country.
Right. So the gang, what kind of gang they are doing? They usually kidnapping or killing, or most what crime they committed?
If you want control, how to put this? The Muslim Brotherhood is the strongest gang in our prisons.
I see.
See, how can I put this?
You mean Islamic State?
Yeah.
Islamic terrorists?
Yep. They are the people behind the drugs.
I see. You mean those prisoners, most Muslim prisoners are related to Islamic State and terrorist group?
Yeah. How can I put this? If you want to be safe in prison, you have to become a Muslim.
I see.
For safety, a man would join the Muslim because they're the most powerful gang. Not the only gang, but they are the most powerful gang.
I see. So Muslim gang, many years prison time.
Yeah, from short-term prisoners, long-term prisoners, if because of safety they join the gang.
Right.
Especially white people in this country. It's a Christian-based country that I live in.
Right.
That is the main religion within our country. It is Christianity. But within the prison system, the most prevalent gang is Muslim.
I see.
So a lot of minorities, a lot of black people, a lot of Asian people will join the gang for safety.
I understand. So in prison, the police cannot do anything inside prison, any gang activity.
They try, but it's like in any society, in our society.
You mean the reality is
radicalization of our young men to be indoctrinated into the Muslim faith. I'm not saying I agree with that,
right.
but that is the case in the prisons now. A lot of people join for safety, and yeah.
Because of their safety, prisoner, even though they are prison guard and police, but the reality, the safety is for their own, right? The guard and police, it cannot follow all the time and cannot protect all the time. So to find safety for your own in prison, right?
Prisons are a breeding ground for radicalization. It's easy to radicalize a young man if society has washed its hands of them and put them in prison.
Right.
They want to belong. They're looking to belong to something. They're looking to do something because that, yeah.
See, so in UK, the prisoner has problem with gang. So is there any else the prisoner has difficulty, because gang is one of the problem for prisoner in UK, because safety is unsecure. What else? Any difficulty in the prison?
The prisons are poorly run. They're understaffed. They don't have the finances because society says people are sent to prison to be punished. That is the punishment. If you do something wrong, you go to prison. Whilst you're in prison, they're underfinanced.
Right.
They can't run the prisons properly. They're underfinanced, and that allows the radicalization of young men within the prison justice system.
Right. So public reaction to prisoner is very negative, right? Because whenever
Yeah.
you are in prison, they think it's supposed to punish. They all are criminal. So they forget prisoner are also human being, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Is there a lot of prisoner they are wrongly indicted, or they mistakenly present? Is there any cases did you see?
Yeah, a few, but the people in prison have broke the law, and so society says they have to go to prison. Once they go to prison, society washes their hands of it.
Right.
They don't want to know. Yeah, yeah. They're very. I think the prison system in our country is very badly funded. Like the prison wouldn't pay me to go in and teach prisoners because they haven't got the funding. I have to find the money to go into prison to do my work. And that's really hard. I'm really struggling. I might have to give up the work that I do in prison because I can't afford to do it.
Right.
I have to earn a living. I have to pay my bills. And so it's hard to get funding to go in and teach prisoners
Right.
and to affect prisoners. I do it because I want to, because it's a passion of mine. I believe I can change lives, but the government doesn't help me.
Right. So you
Yeah,
don't get government funding.
no. And I might have to stop going into prisons because I just can't afford it anymore. I'm retired now. I retired this month because I'm 66 now, so I've retired. So, but I don't want to give up working in prisons. So it's a case of having to find the finances that enable me to go in there. But I'm finding it hard. But that's the situation in England at the moment.
Right. Right. So you said human rights are not considered for prisoner. So how to improve human rights in the prison?
How to improve human rights in prison is it has to come from outside the prison.
Right.
The prisons are underfunded. They've always been underfunded, and it seems to be getting worse. So I think it's up to people like me to do the best they can to try to
Right.
bring about change.
So government is not funding like you and other activists. So you have to rely on the private donor, individual donor. So
Yeah.
you can do, you know,
Yeah, that's why I started my company. I've just started my company. And I'm looking for funding for people to fund me so I can go into prison and deliver what I do in the prison. The prison doesn't pay me. I have to find that money, and it is hard.
right. Usually you get funding from churches or company or businessman, or where is
Um,
more donor?
um, I work with a private company in Manchester,
I see.
But again, you have to apply for fund. You can apply for funding, but it is difficult.
Right.
But I'm determined to do what I do, and so it's finding a way really around all the issues to be able to then deliver what I do in prisons.
So if you retire, you have sufficient pension or, you know, saving.
No.
So how you can survive after retirement?
Well, I can't retire. Um, uh, I don't know. I'm passionate about what I do. And if you believe in what you do, you will find a way to do it.
Right.
And yeah, you have to find a way.
So a lot of drug, you know, it came from Afghanistan or Burma. They, the government, their government are military and authoritarian. They produce with local militia to produce a lot of heroin, opium, and it's spread across the world.
But I do follow Burma, and because of its politicals.
Burma was colonized by British.
Yeah, so I'm Irish. I was born in Ireland, so the British colonized a lot of the world,
Right.
and their influence was great and very destructive. It was destructive for the countries, not for Britain, but for Burma and India and all these places. Imperialism was awful. It was a wicked crime, I think. Yeah.
So
But
the destructive system was followed by the military and authoritarian ruler. They followed that destructive system from colonizer.
yep. The British regime and imperialism was at the cost of other countries. Britain was very powerful, and a lot of harm was done, unfortunately.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Eddie, for today. We hope you success and continue your activity and get more funding. And a lot of people support you, and we support you.